It was a rainy evening in the quiet countryside of northern England. The kind of evening when the fog crawls low across the fields and every shadow feels alive. Daniel Carter, a young documentary filmmaker, had traveled to a small village called Ashwood. He was investigating stories, strange stories, about an abandoned Victorian house on the edge of town. Locals called it the Ashwood House. They said no one had lived there for over 50 years, and yet lights were often seen glowing inside its broken windows. Some villagers swore they had heard voices, whispers calling their names when they passed by at night. Daniel, of course, didn't believe in ghosts. He wanted proof. He wanted to capture fear itself on camera. When he arrived at the old mansion, the sun had already disappeared. The house stood tall and broken, its wooden beams twisted, the roof half collapsed. The iron gate screeched as he pushed it open, the sound echoing unnaturally in the mist. Daniel lifted his camera and whispered into the microphone, "This is the Ashwood House, abandoned since 1872. Locals believe it's cursed. Tonight I'm going to spend the night here and find out the truth." He stepped inside. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the air changed. It was colder, much colder. His breath fogged in front of him. The smell of mold and wet wood filled his lungs. The hallway stretched into darkness, wallpaper peeled like skin. Paintings hung crooked, their subjects, Victorian men and women, staring with blank, lifeless eyes. The silence was heavy, too heavy. Even the sound of the storm outside seemed distant, muffled, as if the house itself had swallowed the noise. Daniel set up his tripod, shining a flashlight across the hallway. Dust floated in the beam like tiny ghosts, and then, creak. A single floorboard groaned upstairs. Daniel froze. "Probably just the house settling," he muttered, forcing a nervous smile. But the sound didn't stop. Creak, creak, slow, deliberate footsteps above his head. He whispered into the microphone, "I think I'm not alone here." Clutching his flashlight, Daniel climbed the staircase. Each step groaned beneath him, echoing like a warning. When he reached the landing, he felt it. A sudden blast of icy wind, though every window was shut tight. And then he heard it. A whisper, so faint, so fragile that he thought he imagined it. But no, it came again. Daniel, his blood ran cold. Someone, or something, had spoken his name. "Who's there?" he called, voice trembling. His flashlight flickered, the beam sputtering weakly. The whisper moved, not from one place, but from everywhere. Above him, behind him, inside the walls. "Now, Daniel, come closer." His heart pounded in his chest. He followed the sound down the corridor, past rotting doors and broken windows. Finally, he stopped at the last door at the end of the hallway. It was different from the others, tall, black, unmarked, and it was locked. Yet as he touched the handle, it turned on its own. The door creaked open. Inside was a small bedroom. Dust covered everything, the bed, the desk, the shelves. But the strangest thing was the mirror. A tall, cracked mirror stood against the far wall. Its glass was fogged, blackened around the edges. Daniel stepped closer, camera shaking in his hands. As he raised his flashlight, his reflection appeared. But it wasn't right. The reflection was smiling. A wide, grotesque grin stretched across his face, even though he was not smiling at all. Daniel stumbled back, nearly dropping his camera. The reflection didn't move with him. It stayed, grinning. And then it whispered, "Stay with us." He turned and bolted out of the room, heart racing. The hallway seemed longer now, endless. Every door he passed slammed shut on its own, one after another. Bang, bang, bang. The whispers grew louder. "Why, Daniel, don't leave. Stay forever." He reached the staircase, but the steps were gone. Where the staircase should have been, there was only darkness. A black void that seemed to stretch forever downward. No, this isn't real," he screamed. He pressed his hands against the walls, searching for a way out. But the wallpaper felt wet. It pulsed beneath his fingers, like skin. The house was alive. His flashlight went out. Total darkness swallowed him, and in that darkness the whispers became screams, hundreds of voices crying, begging, wailing. He fell to his knees, covering his ears, but the voices were inside his head. He could feel them clawing at his thoughts, his memories, his very soul. And then, silence. A cold hand touched his shoulder. Daniel turned and saw himself, but not him, not really. A rotting, corpse-like version of himself stood there, eyes hollow, mouth grinning. It leaned closer, whispering in a voice that was his own. "You're mine now." The next morning, the villagers noticed something strange. The lights in Ashwood House had been on all night. Curious, a farmer walked up to the gate. Through the broken window, he saw a man standing in the upstairs hallway, a man holding a camera, just staring. But when the villagers searched the house later that day, it was empty. No sign of Daniel, only his camera lying on the floor. On the footage, Daniel's voice was heard whispering over and over, "Stay with us, stay with us, stay with us." And from that day on, every person who dared to enter the Ashwood House swore they could hear a new voice among the whispers. Daniel's voice, still calling, still trapped, forever. More history for subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching.